Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. How are you all doing? I am looking a little rough. Look at those dark circles. Sorry, Erin. Clearly, I did not use my eye patches before I did this talk, and I should have. I even left some in my office in case I've ever had a rough night, and I come here to do a live, and I still didn't use them because I didn't get here soon enough. I blame it on having a baby. Okay, I am just trying to figure out if my sound is working okay here. I see that there's somebody maybe watching. Could you just let me know in the comments if my sound is okay? Let me just double check here because I've had a lot of technological issues lately. So, okay, I'm just gonna turn this on.
Happy Friday.
Oh yeah, it's working.
Comments.
Okay, amazing. All right,
Sound is okay.
let me just mute this. Okay. Get to watch me watching myself just to make sure everything is working. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Hi, Carly. How are you? Okay, so it has been a tough week for me, which is why I have these crazy dark circles. Maybe if I put my glasses on, I wouldn't look so scary. But it's all good. It's just been a week of a bunch of failures. So I thought, well, what week is better than this week to come on and talk about fear of failure? And to be honest, I'm actually fairly impressed that I'm here right now because a few moments ago, when I was driving in my car on my way here, I picked up a coffee from Tim Hortons and the lid fell off when I was getting out of my car, and the hot coffee started to spill onto my hand, and of course my instant reaction was to drop the coffee, so then the coffee spilled all over my car, all over my clothes. It's a good thing I keep towels in the car because when you have a toddler, they like to get wet and they like to get into things. So thankfully I had some towels so I could clean up, but like my shorts are covered in coffee stains. My hand is not too bad, thankfully, but just added to, it was just like the perfect thing to have happen to me right before I came to do a talk here about fear of failure. So outside of that, it's been a week of many failures, actually. Maybe like a few weeks of many failures, to be honest with you. But before you get all doom and gloom and assume that I'm in a dark place, I just want you to know this, okay? I've actually learned to love failure. And maybe not exactly when I'm in it, okay? Like I certainly don't love when I drop a hot coffee and burn my hand, but I'll tell you more very soon about how I have learned to love failure. So, how is everybody doing? Give me like a little hearts, give me a hashtag live if you're here, because that just helps fill up my cup a little bit. I very much appreciate it. Let me know how your week has been. Have you had any failures this week? I like interacting with you guys here. And before I go on, I just want to tell you that I'm creating some new free trainings for this group. So I want to know what you want to know most. You can send me a DM, you can post here. What would you like to see me do some coaching or some teaching on in this group? Hi, Jen. Hi, Jill. I haven't got around to adding everyone in this group to my email list yet. I know when I welcome you in, I give you the opportunity to send me your email, and I'm way behind. I thought I had set up a way to do this automatically, but it didn't actually work. So I have basically got this situation where I have a whole bunch of emails that I have to manually add. So I would love it if you would pop on over to my website, antifragilefmd.com, and add yourself in so that I don't have to do it. And make sure you grab the free guide that I have there, which is the top 10 ways to survive burnout, particularly for female physicians. If you haven't read it yet, you might want to, because it's helped lots of female doctors get started on their journey to recovering from burnout. But also, I'm going to replace it with some new material soon. Okay, so let's get going here, talking about how to overcome fear of failure. Okay, I have some experience with failure. And it's funny because I think I spent most of my life hiding from failure, but when you decide to start a business at the same time as being a physician, at the same time as having a baby, at the same time as being neurodiverse, shout out to my ADHD sisters out there. When you do that and decide to become a CEO of a business, you have a lot of failures, okay? I know my audience here doesn't care that much about my business failings, okay? This stuff, by the way, is gold to entrepreneurs who have to learn to embrace failure to succeed, but I know that female physicians are terrified of failure, so there are some lessons here that are applicable. We're terrified because when we fail at things, it makes us feel like we are a failure. It makes us feel like we are not good enough. We connect our value and our worth with the failure, okay? Failure makes us believe that we're not successful. It feeds into our inner critic, who has, of course, always told us that we're not enough, right? And so the inner critic just pipes up her ugly head and she's like, see, I told you so, right? You just failed at that thing, okay? I know this because when I talk to female physicians all the time about what they're afraid of, what they're afraid of if they establish boundaries, what they're afraid of if they say no, what they're afraid of if they stop overworking, if they give their patients back some responsibility for their well-being and their health, if they make a mistake, what they're afraid of is failure. It's social rejection. It's losing everything. It's not being good enough, right? So these are just a few of the things I failed at in the last week. The coffee incident notwithstanding. Okay. Doing anything, or at least these are things that have come into my, attention that I failed at, okay? Doing any bookkeeping for my business since my last launch. Getting to bed at any sort of reasonable time, hence the dark circles. Getting a package out to a friend that I told her I would mail her days ago. Having any sort of reasonable plan to make sure that I would be able to pay myself out of my business for the incredible work that I do. Getting a swim in my pool and a lounge in my hammock, which I have been working with my coach on trying to establish as a goal for myself. Getting any workouts done. Following my eating plan yesterday, and I ate a donut on the way here. Learning to allow my urges. When I want to do retail therapy, a whole bunch of packages just showed up to my door. Learning to allow the urge to pick the skin on my feet when I'm stressed, guys. It's the grossest thing ever, but I have a really bad habit of doing this. You know that awful callus that you get on your feet? Okay, yeah, it's disgusting, but failed at that too. And not letting my emotions get the better of me in a very heated physician moment, also failed there too, and said some words I wish I could just dial back a little. Okay, just a few of my failures. Some are big and have come with some consequences, and some are pretty inconsequential, but all of them are failures. What is a failure? We get this mixed up in our minds. We get our worth tied in, we get our sense of life success tied in. We interpret failures as meaning we're going to be left completely rejected by the world and alone. We interpret failure as being associated with such a severe tongue lashing from our inner critic that there's no way we could do anything where we might fail. We tell ourselves that failure implies fault, implies negligence, implies intent to harm other people. It's not really any wonder that we fear it so much. Failure is one of those things, thankfully, failure is none of those things, thankfully. The Oxford Dictionary defines failure as the omission of expected or required action. Let me say it again. The omission of expected or required action. That's it. Pretty boring and ho-hum definition, right? We expected something to happen. It didn't. Okay. I didn't see anything in that definition about you being a worthless human being that will never accomplish anything in your life. Yet somehow that's what our inner critic thinks about failure, right? Especially when we're female doctors. We tell ourselves that the stakes of things we might fail at are so high that if we fail, we are a failure. But this is dangerously, dangerously damaging to your relationship with yourself, to my relationship with myself. The literature would suggest that this harsh self-criticism doesn't work, doesn't get us any closer to the goal that we have for ourselves, which of course is, some unattainable standard of perfection, right? Instead, it creates anxiety, stress, imposter syndrome, fear, shame, embarrassment, emotional exhaustion. It might even lead to mental illness, suicidal ideation. So here are the lessons that we can take from my entrepreneurial adventures that are applicable to female physicians too. Okay? So number one, every time we do something, we either get the result we want or we get the lesson we need. Okay. We get the result we want or the lesson we need. So what does this mean? It means we can choose to see every time we fail as an opportunity for learning. It's actually ingrained into us as human beings. I, of course, have a 3-month-old baby at home, and I just want to think about her through this lens for a moment, okay? She's not hardwired to stop doing things just because they didn't work out. She's not hardwired to decide that she's worthless if she can't figure something out, if she reaches her little hand out to grab something and she misses. She's actually hardwired to try again until she gets what she wants, to ask for help. Help, mommy, I need you, right? This is what we're hardwired to do, to try and try and try and try again, to learn, to adapt, to build strength so she can finally grasp that thing, pull it towards her, right? This is innate in our DNA as human beings. So what are the lessons we can find in our failings? Just a few of the ones I've learned this week are: businesses thrive on structures, standard operating procedures, plans. That if I want to meet my goal of replacing my clinical income so that I can do medicine for fun in the way, on my terms, in the way I choose to do it, then I need to implement these things. Another lesson, if I want to make sure that I get a reasonable amount of sleep and that I eat on plan, I have to be present in the moment. I can't be so caught up in the future or the past, the things I regret, my stresses, my failings, right? I can't be so caught up in that I can't see what's happening right now in this moment. One more. It's normal to have emotions when tensions are high. Again, being present and noticing my emotions is helpful because I can ask myself if I want to be speaking and doing things out of that place of emotion, or if I want to be processing what's going on inside me first before I speak. Okay, they're lessons, all of them, right? Do you struggle with questioning things that you did or you said, maybe to patients, maybe to your colleagues, maybe to your spouse, your kids? Do you struggle wondering why you set aside paperwork time and you ended up doing something else instead? Are you wondering why you can't seem to make any headway on your backlog? These are all, every one of these failures, right? Quote unquote failures are invitations to ask yourself, if I'm not getting the lesson I want, what's the lesson I need? Okay, number 2. Despite what your inner critic says, failure does not mean that you are a failure. So lesson number 1 is every time we do something, we either get the result we want or the lesson we need. And lesson number 2 is even no matter what your inner critic says, failure does not mean you are a failure, okay? It's a complete lie that failing at something means that you're a failure. Let me say it again. It's a complete lie that failing at something means you are a failure. Human beings cannot be failures, my friends, okay? We're all born worthy and good enough and complete. Again, I'm going to use babies as an example, right? We don't look at them and see that because they can't feed themselves, they can't use the toilet, they can't even sit up, they're failures, right? In fact, we know they're extraordinary beings that are capable of learning how to do so many things. When we look at children, we see their worthiness and their perfection. When does this change? Why does this change? Why do we start to consider human beings as good or bad, failures or successes? These are just constructs of the human ego. They aren't real. But the amazing news about this is that it means there's nothing you can fail at in your life that makes you a failure. So what can you do when your human brain offers you this conclusion? Because that's what that bitch, the inner critic, does, right? What can you do? From hundreds of hours of working with female doctors and helping them to take advantage of their neuroplasticity, my recommendation is just to ask yourself some simple questions. Ask yourself, am I using I am statements or I did statements to describe this failure? Okay? When we look at things that we either did or didn't do, we take the attention off of who we are. We pivot from that I am a failure to something didn't work out, okay? I failed at something, okay? So the idea behind this is to take the attention off the ego. Then our inner critic can sit down and put her feet up and relax, and we can identify what we are considering to be a failure, again, remembering that the definition of failure is just not meeting expectations. So we can go to the place where we can start to ask ourselves, what happened? We can be curious, right? We can start to ask ourselves, what would I do next time? It's this curiosity that's the key to human growth, and it's our superpower if we want to change the outcome the next time. Okay, first one, failure is, or in life, I either get the lesson I want, or I either get the outcome I want or the lesson I need. Number two, despite what your inner critic says, failure does not mean that you are a failure. Number three is failure does not mean fault, malicious intent, or negligence. As physicians, our brains are ever integrating new information. After we see that lab result or the progress of the patient's symptoms, it may seem obvious to us that something was happening. And then we might start to tell ourselves we should have known the diagnosis then. But hindsight is always 20/20. And if we choose to blame ourselves for processes happening in our patients' human bodies that have nothing to do with us, then it becomes very hard to review cases with the intent of doing things differently next time, if at all possible. No matter what, whether you see it happening in the moment or not, you cannot be responsible for a physical process happening in your patient's body. You don't cause physical illnesses in your patients, okay? You don't cause diseases. Our brains can only focus on one thing at a time. So the problem with this line of thinking that failure means we're at fault or we're somehow responsible is that when we're focused on telling ourselves that we're to blame, when that is where our brain is focused, when we're focused on telling ourselves things are our fault, we're a bad doctor, we must be terrible human beings, then we can't focus on seeing how the evolution of the clinical case may contain some lessons for us for the future, how we might try something different the next time we face something like this, okay? Failure does not mean fault. Number three. Number four, take lessons from people who are in the arena. If I want to explore failure, I can't think of any better area to explore it than thinking about athletics. I only became an athlete as an adult. For a few years before I had kids, I raced obstacle course races, and I competed in the world championships one year. As I was learning how to overcome obstacles, I failed a whole fucking lot. I fell when I didn't make it over a wall. I fell off a rope. My grip gave out on a rig. I missed a spear throw. I was a few seconds too late to qualify many times. It was the perfect metaphor for life. And all the while, I had a coach and I had teammates who believed me, who supported me. I really like this quote from Simone Biles, who's an Olympic gymnast. Says, surround yourself with the dreamers, the doers, the believers, and the thinkers. But most of all, surround yourself with those who see greatness within you, even when you don't see it yourself. This is coming full circle for me in terms of my venture into the entrepreneurial world this week when I realized that my business was in a state of financial failure, again, not meeting expectations. I had to double down and reach out to all the people in my court who have carried me through this journey from day one. I asked for coaching. I talked to experts. I'm reading books. When I try to make this failure mean that I am a failure, despite what looks to the outside world like a success, right? They are there to remind me that even if I burned everything to the ground, I could start over again because I have skills, I have abilities, I have talents, I have passion. So learn from the people who are in the arena, who are doing this, who are willing to try things and fail. And the last one, you had to know this was going to come from me. Embrace anti-fragility. Okay, you all know I like to talk about anti-fragility around here. Per the author and philosopher Nassim Taleb, who coined this concept, anti-fragility is a property of systems in which they increase in the capability to thrive as a result of stressors, shocks, volatility, noise, mistakes, faults, attacks, or failures. Say what? Systems that increase in their capability to thrive as a result of failure? I just freaking love this concept, okay? We can actually thrive. We can actually get better because of our failures. Just think about this for a moment. Notice what your emotional response is to this statement. For me, it excites me. It makes me want to put as many failures as I can into the failure bank so that I can just like turn out win, 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 right? Because we can get better because of our failures. Now, for some of you, you might not believe this is possible right now, and that's totally okay. You get to decide what you want to believe. That's the power of our human brain. So if you don't want to believe this right now, or I should say, sorry, if you don't believe this right now, but you want to, this is your invitation right now to make an intentional choice to work towards learning how to believe this, okay? To practice thinking about your world this way every day. To check your inner critic when she comes out to play, remind her that putting failures into the failure bank yields wins, yields successes, yields thriving. We may not be able to see it in the moment. We may have to sit with some uncomfortable emotions in the process, but the successes eventually come. Some say that without failure, there is no success. I don't know if I believe that truly, but I believe that failures are an inevitable part of human life. And I believe that this process that I've laid out for you is how we embody and embrace failure to become anti-fragile. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. I love chatting with you always. I'm glad I'm not the only foot picker in the crowd. Oh my God, it's so bad sometimes, I'm telling you. So bad when I get stressed. I don't even realize I'm doing it. I need to like wear socks, except that I'm breastfeeding and I'm always hot too, so I also can't wear socks. This is just the status of my life right now. Okay, everybody, I hope you have an amazing weekend. I will see my clients who are here on tomorrow, my alumni clients tomorrow, and the rest of you all next Friday. Okay, take care. Bye.